Today's guest and I share a lot in common. We have the same first name, and we also both came from the automotive industry into real estate. Today, we sit down with John Gravelyn, who came from the automotive world, working on Ford and Rivian, to now building a real estate portfolio and helping others invest in real estate as well. Today's going to break down some of the challenges that he sees, particularly with other engineers, and how to grow and scale your portfolio. If you are looking to grow and make that transition from your corporate job into being a real estate investor, make sure you check out today's conversation right here on Multifamily Insights. John Gravelyn spent his career managing massive technical launches at both Ford and Rivian, but he's always viewed the real estate market through that same engineering lens. That he brings a first principles approach to multifamily, treating complex properties like production lines, where every variable can be measured and optimized for better performance. Let's welcome to the show, John Gravelyn.
John, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on the show. Love your background. I went over it at a very, very high level. Why don't you take 1 or 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah, John. So I spent most of my career in engineering. My dream growing up was all about getting into cars. And so I got into Ford. And by the time I was getting into Ford, you had the rise of electric cars and everything else. And so that was less interesting at Ford. I wanted to go into Rivian and always kind of wanted to be at the front edge of that. But while I was in cars, I bought my first house and fell in love with real estate. There's something more about ownership that was driving me. I thought it was the cars, but it was owning the cars that I loved. And then owning the house is an even bigger thing. Um, but I always wanted my own business. And fortunately, I did well at Rivian and was able to start off on my own and build this company and start helping people treat real estate like the engineering problem it is.
All right, let's break that down, man. So you come from the engineering world, work in the automotive space. You know, our listeners may remember that that's actually my background too. Not engineering, but automotive, right? I worked in advertising and marketing for 15 years, started off at GM. So I was there from 2007 to 2011, went through that downturn.
Yeah.
So I've got a soft space in my heart, man, for the automotive industry. That's where you cut your teeth and realize real estate was really what you enjoyed. Ironically, that's kind of what happened to me too, a little bit different light, but I was looking for an industry that felt more recession proof coming out of that time frame and something that I could have a little bit more ownership and control over my career. And that's what led me to real estate. So it sounds like we kind of started in similar industries, got there very differently, but also ultimately had similar outcomes as far as the pathway out. What was it for you about real estate that grabbed your attention and made you say, you know what, I need to spend my energy on this as opposed to the automotive industry?
I think there's just so much more opportunity for and variation, and it's a much more difficult problem to solve, right? Because in real estate, every asset is wildly variable, right? In automotive, especially, right? You solve to minimize variability. But my house and my neighbor's house 2 doors down are similar, comparable, but vastly different. And when it comes to real estate investing, where you're trying to find a way to make a profit over time or long or short periods, whether you want to do a fix and flip or a multifamily or anything, that the problems just become much bigger and much more interesting um, and less certain. So I think that's and just there's so much variability. That's what I love about it. Like some days, I'm fixing a toilet. Other days, I open a wall and it's about to fall apart. I got pictures to show that. And then, other days I'm working on spreadsheets all day or building a website. So I think real estate, it's just fun.
Hey, you spoken like a true engineer, right? You love the variables. You love solving problems. You want to see what's going on, understanding how it all works, putting it together. That's what I would expect from an engineer, right? I take a little bit of a different approach to it, but I love to hear your perspective there. So let's get into it, right? So talk to us about first principles partners and what exactly you do there.
All right. So I set off on my entrepreneur career with a plan to do anything besides get a real estate license. And I was in this box as an engineer might be. Um, not really understanding sales and marketing. I'm sorry for everything I said back, when I was on the other side there. But, as I started to learn more about the business world, I'm like, actually, I need a real estate license. And where I can be of the most help is helping people who think like me get invested in real estate and really start that at the beginning level. I think a lot of my success is come from like financial and just life and like being focused and driven. It's come from owning a house. And I just want to help young engineers own a house. Typically, they have, you know, the income and everything, but there's a lot of fear out there right now. And it's a terrible time and this and that. So I'm like, how can I help engineers get on that level? And then how can I help the engineers who are at my level now solve the next scary problem of scaling that investment beyond just your own home and into other people's homes and owning more of that? And it's become more of a marketing problem than I expected. Honestly, I thought it was like oh yeah, it's, build it and they'll come. Yeah. And now I'm like, man, those marketing guys did a lot. And it is so interesting and I love it and I love getting into it. And yeah, definitely changing the approach from I don't have as much hands-on time as I used to. Um, but it's just it's been a very different ride than I was expecting, but it's more exciting and more fulfilling than power washing driveways all day or anything that was on the list. That was kind of a top contender for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you breaking that down, right? Because one of the things we see is this notion of investing in real estate can be alluring for a lot of people. When you get into it, you realize that hey, there's more variables and more challenges, but how do you scale? And one of the main reasons we created this show was we were running into that issue, right? How do you scale? How do you scale in different markets? How do you put teams together? How do you raise capital? How do you structure deals? Like the level of complexity starts to increase as you face more and more challenges. So the more you are equipped with the resources, the easier it becomes to overcome some of those issues. What I find in talking to most newer investors is they're still struggling with the mindset of being an investor. They may have that first home, the American dream, right? They got that house, right? But how do they get that first investment property? How do they get the next investment property? How do they manage that, especially when juggling a full-time job? That can be a challenge for a lot of people. With the individuals you're coming across, right? The folks who are hiring you to work with, what are some of the challenges that they're facing, and how are you helping them overcome those challenges?
One of the biggest mindset shifts, especially from engineering to investing or business in general, that I think you touched on is deal structuring, right? And just deals in general. And in engineering, two plus two always equals four. When someone says something equal, it's $130,000, that means it's $130,000. They don't know it could be $120,000 plus a Thanksgiving dinner every year. There's really infinite variability there. And I actually had a question earlier on. He was like, your calculators, it was a fair point that my calculator wasn't showing PMI, but he had 17% down. And I go, if your bank is charging you PMI and you have 17% down, go find another bank because they will gladly not charge you PMI. It's all negotiable, right? And I think there's that mindset that's hard to get over, that the world is so rigid in engineering that you have to know that you can go out there and get it, but you're the one that has to go out there and get it. Whether or not there's a rule that says it or not, it's the world, the business and investing world is about kind of operating in a less black and white world than the engineering world is. And it just takes some conversation and time and showing them the numbers and the probability and the variability in there. And it makes a little more sense, right? When the numbers show and that the charts show and it starts to bring houses from it and real estate from a map to something that is more graphical in nature and more numerical in nature. It's something that's easier to grasp. And then you feel a little more comfortable going between black and white into that gray area.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. Uh, let's talk about kind of the gap that exists in the marketplace, right? Because there's a difference between the analysis side, which I imagine many engineers probably enjoy, to the actual acquisition side of that, and then obviously the management. Talk us through kind of those three phases and how you approach it with those clients, both from the analysis of the deal, the actual acquisition of the deal, and then ultimately into the management of that property.
So, especially with my clients, they're like you kind of hit on it right there. They're analytical. They tend not to like to go hands off, but I also remind them that they're humans and they are much better off having somebody negotiate and having an agent to work with to negotiate the deal because you're going to get emotional about the deal. It's better to have somebody negotiating on your behalf or with you or really as a partner there. Um, because that's not where you're the expert, work where you're the expert. You're the analytical person, be the analysis person here, and then work with partners along the rest of the way because your time is too valuable fixing toilets. As much as fun as me and the other engineers might have fun doing it, we have to hire that out. So it's really not necessarily hire it out, but partner up with folks that, folks like yourself, or really to get into the investing side um, in a less friction way because, a lot of engineers and analytical folks, they have very demanding jobs and they have the creativity to do well in real estate investing, but then they get bogged down in the things they're not good at and they lose interest. So I just push it like it is, just make it an engineering problem and partner to have the more complex problems, the negotiation problems, the deal set problems, and everything else. You can partner up for the rest of that.
Yeah, and that's it, right? And that's the thing that I know what I find is a lot of the clients I've worked with and folks who are trying to really scale into this when they're new and they're making that transition from listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast and consuming all that information. It's really that shift in mindset from being essentially a landlord, right? Where they do everything. They are the one who is, fixing any issues at the property. They're the ones who are putting up the for rent signs and screening all the tenants and collecting rent and managing all the repairs, right? Even if they're outsourcing the repairs, they're still the person involved in the main interface between the tenant to really understand what it means to be more of an investor, a true investor, where you have an in place property manager or you have partners who control that aspect of it. And you're really more investing more from a monetary perspective and making sure your investment is performing well. And that's a challenge for a lot of people, right? Part of it's control. A lot of folks want control and they got into this industry because they wanted control. But the other part of it is scale. And that's the thing that you've got to weigh is, do you want to maintain control or do you want to scale? And when it comes to money, when it comes to time, there's only so much of it that you have, especially at any given moment in time. So you have to figure out how do you leverage other people, whether it's leveraging other people's time or leveraging other people's money. That's one of the best ways to really scale and get what you want. For us in our business, I know many of our investors come from professional backgrounds, engineers, doctors, lots of different careers. And that's one of the questions we get into, right? What are you guys looking for? What do you want? And I know that for folks, if you like the idea of making money in real estate, you've tried it, but you hate the idea of being a landlord, this is where passive investing becomes a great option, right? Or investing with someone who can be your partner who is going to take the lead on some of those day-to-day tasks because we know real estate works, especially when done right. It's just a matter of having the right people to go execute. And this is literally I just got off the phone. This is a conversation I just had with someone on my team where we got a GC. He does good work, but we kind of have to stay on top of him because at times he can, kind of get
No.
off and, yeah, exactly. So, it's one of those things where like you kind of always need to monitor progression. They tend to get complacent, and get really comfortable and they scope a project, but then they didn't really scope the project. So now they're coming back and like, oh, I didn't have this in the estimate. It's like, dude, we had a scope for this reason. Like, so anyway, that's part of the process, right? But not everybody wants to do that. I know a lot of people think they want to
Oh
do it,
yeah.
but then they get into it and you realize it's just another job. If you're doing it that way, it can just be another job and it's not the passive income or the scale or the lifestyle change that I know a lot of people are looking for. Um, Tell me about your thoughts on that and kind of your take and how you view it in the marketplace.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And hiring and partnering and everything is the only way, because it's there's only so many hours in a day. I think handing things off and delegating was I my career shifted from being an engineer to engineering management. So that lifestyle, that life cycle typically has project manager for a while, where you do kind of this in between job of manager and engineer. And um, you have to learn how to delegate and influence without the strength, is what, one of my managers put it. Then I eventually got to management, and my boss at the time, he didn't have the best vocabulary, but he constantly told me, John, you have to deviate. You have to deviate these tasks. When I give you something to do, I don't expect you to do it. Deviate it. And I think he meant delegate. But regardless, I took that mindset on fully for 2 weeks, and I did as well as I could. And anything that came my way, hey, I had a team of 10 people. There was no reason I should have been doing anything. And I learned very quickly how much more leverage there is when you are the central point of influence to creating your vision, versus trying to build it all yourself, because you only have so many hours in the day. You only have so much expertise too. I had engineers that were brilliant working with me, and you know, the things that I was able to ask them to do, I could have never done. Okay, maybe I could have done, yeah, but it would have taken me 8 hours and took them 10 minutes. So it reminds me of like at a point, Henry Ford was, like a story of Henry Ford where he was being insulted, or the newspapers were trying to catch him. Like, you're not as smart as everyone thinks you are. Let's ask you questions. They started asking him questions, and every question he was saying calls, and he had a guy for every question. He knew what to call. So it's not about what you know, it's who you know, and how you utilize your network and the people around you to build a better system for win-wins, so that um we all grow the pie together with our unique skills.
Yeah, listen, John, I love what you talked about, right? That team aspect and being able to lean on other experts. I mean, that's critical. And once we can, you know, let our ego go and have some humility and recognize that, you know what, there are other people who do this full time, probably way better at this than I am. Not to say you can't do it, but this is that who, not how principle, right? Who can do this thing way better than me, so I don't have to worry about it. And there are lots of different ways of thinking of it. Um, there's another gentleman I'm thinking about right now, and his whole thing is now this is going to bother me. What is his name? Anyway, I'll come back to it. But there's another gentleman who his whole thing is how do you delegate so that others can execute, because 100% done by someone else is 100% awesome, right? So it's understanding like where are we with the time that we have and how do we maximize it? And as investors, that's really, really important for us to understand. One of the things that we've been talking about and working through with our mastermind is trying to help people learn how to really scale and how to either raise capital, partner with others, stand out with brokers, stand out with property managers, and then vet key team members. What I have found is this notion of leaning on other people is a great idea, but if you don't know how to vet people, what to look for in partners and what questions to ask and, verifying these individuals are the right people for you and your business plan, it can end disastrously. Talk to me about kind of your approach to the vetting process and making sure you're putting the right people with the right vendors. And that can
So
be
it's yeah.
that can just be from like lenders, that could be with property managers, that can just be, at a high level. But as you guys think about first principles partners, how do you guys look at that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the vetting comes down to, all of our partners, we do an initial vetting, right? They're good, they're legit, but a lot of the vetting comes down to individual variables, right? And that's where we come in and give you the tools to compare lenders and partners and to get the most out of that. But then also my personal philosophy with working with partners and lenders, is to hire fast and fire fast. Really, really just, um, I'm not going to learn more from 3, 4 interviews from you than I'm going to learn in one 20-minute conversation, right? Um, and then also I kind of view partners and stuff that it's a dynamic relationship. It's not a relationship that ends once you pick them, right? You can constantly work to improve your rapport relationship with that person to, the in words of Dale Carnegie, to make them want to work for you, right? To constantly work on that relationship so they're going to want to do a better job, right? Because I think so many people look at it and they say, oh, I hired the wrong person. But what are you doing as a manager to make sure that person thrives, right? Everyone's got a different thing that makes them tick. And if you can find that, you're going to, turn a 1X employee to a 2X, 3X employee. And so I guess most of my philosophy just comes into hiring as more of a dynamic relationship. And it is risky. I've been burnt. I've absolutely been burnt. And, I had to move on and just say, okay, well, I'm sorry, the retainer is what it is. I guess you got the money, but hate it. It is what it is. And you just move on. And it's, there's more good people out there than you think to work with. I think we get in this mindset that, there's everyone's out to screw you and this and that, especially with a cynical engineering mindset. I've been there, man. But most people aren't, and most people want to work with good people. So I just focus on who we work with and building those partnerships.
No, I love it. I mean, listen, you're not going to get far if you think everybody's your enemy, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have to figure out how to trust other people and how to verify that, and not necessarily give them everything. But on the same note, you got to find people you can work with, and there's some skills in that. There's some things you develop along the way with experience, but you've got to definitely have that positive mindset going into it. And we've been burned before too, right? And just you try to learn from that experience. I like to tell our kids, I coach football or some other sports. I tell them all the time, you either win or you get feedback. And take the feedback. When you don't win, take the feedback, listen to it, like actually learn from it so that you don't make the same mistakes and you can make the appropriate adjustments. We're here with John Gravelyn right now. If you want to learn more about him and his company, check out thefppartners.com. We're going to put a link to that in the show notes. In just a moment, we're going to transition and go to our round of insights. But before we do, I want to let you know that we have our multifamily mastery mastermind open now. And we're super excited to bring this thing to the table. If you are looking to connect with other multifamily real estate investors, those who are looking to invest passively, actively, raise capital, want to learn how to navigate different markets, want to learn how to raise capital like a pro and build your portfolio, this is a group you want to be a part of. We've got a phenomenal offer right now, which is available on our website. Just check it out. Go to casmoncapital.com and learn more. All right, round of insights. Let's go. First question. When you think you found a great deal, asking the right questions could be the difference in finding a stud or a dud. Listen, we've put together a new guide to help you out. It's called 7 Questions You Must Ask Before Investing in Apartments. Now, in this guide, you're going to learn how to uncover red flags, quickly identify underwriting risk, vet sponsors and team members, and confirm key assumptions. Now, this is a guide that's going to help you be a better investor, whether you're an active investor or you're a passive investor looking to partner with other operators. Asking better questions is the key to identifying great opportunities. So download this free guide. Go to our website, casmoncapital.com/7 questions. That's the number 7 questions. And you can access this free guide today. To make it easy on you, though, we've put a link in our show notes. So you go to our show notes, you can click that link and access the guide right now. This guide's going to help you make better investment choices, asking the right questions to build your portfolio. So be sure to download it today. Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Oh man, well, my layoff, right? I mean, it depends on how you look at it. I was kind of planning it, but also I was kind of not planning it. Depending on how you looked at it. And also kind of depending on the day after, is the greatest thing or the worst thing in the world, depending on my mindset. It was the greatest thing in the world, though.
There you go. It's always kind of a great way of, pushing you into action or something else, right? What you're supposed to do. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for our listeners.
I know a lot of AI tools out there right now. I love Gemini. That's just that's my go-to. It seems to work really well with code and um, developing more content code and just translating content from Excel to code. There's so many cool things you can do with Gemini. Love Gemini.
All right, Gemini it is. Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Ooh, last year, how to win friends and influence people. I spent a lot of money on books in my engineering career. None was more profitable to my career than that.
That's a classic. And by the way, that makes me think the book of the author I was thinking of earlier is Dan Martell.
Yes.
Time. That's all I was thinking of. I was like, what is his name? Dan Martell. That's who I was thinking.
Yeah.
He's got a great quote about, working with other people. So excellent stuff. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Getting up in the morning and playing with my kids. First thing I do in the morning. They're 2.5. So I got 2.5-year-old twin boys. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. that keeps me focused and unfocused. But
there you go. Well, that's a fun and energy filled time. That's 2.5 with 2, man. I can't imagine.
Oh yeah.
I love it. All right. Give me your number one insight for finding great partners.
Listen, both sides. Listen to how they listen, focus on how they listen to you, and then listen back. I mean, it's a two-way street. It goes both ways, and focus on listening.
There you go. All right. You are in Central Michigan, and I wanted to know your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
So I lived in lots of different parts of Michigan, travel a lot. Lately, it's Leo's Lodge in East Lansing. Been my favorite bar lately. So since we moved here, I've been excited to find my place, and that's it.
Leo's Lodge it is. Good stuff. Well, John, great stuff, man. Really enjoyed talking to you. A couple things stood out to me. One, just your engineering brain, right? Getting into real estate, transitioning out of the automotive sector, getting into real estate, and really start to realize, you know what? I think there are a lot of other people like me, other engineers who need help making this transition or starting to at least build up their portfolio, looking for a partner who can help guide them through the process. And that's been your focus as of late. Your company, VFPpartners.com. Folks can check it out and learn more about some of the tools. You got some deal analyzers on there. You got some really fun things that you built that folks can check out. So really check out that website. Are all your deals or most of your deals focused in Michigan, or is it kind of applicable across the country?
Calculators applicable across the country. We have MLS data for Michigan though, so that does help on the research side.
Yeah, so there you go. So if you're in Michigan, definitely check it out. If you're not in Michigan, you still got a calculator and some other tools that can work for you no matter where you are. Again, we're here with John Gravelyn. Check him out at VFPpartners.com. John, I want to thank you again for a great guest and coming on the show. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.